pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Robert Mueller.
Here.
Dina Freilich.
Here.
Jan Bruns. Beth Caldwell. Stephanie Groningen. Kelly Fowler.
Here.
Laura Oliver.
Here.
Michael Hankins. Jack Dunsey.
Here.
And Joe Steiger.
Here. I just saw Beth. She's got to be on her way. I just went and got a cup of coffee. She said she was coming, so. And I
She's
talked.
got a couple of big orders this morning,
Okay.
too. I know she said she may have to leave.
And we have a quorum.
Okay. I think you have in front of you the agenda.
Move to approve with the addition of event placement on the website under new business.
I think it says signature, does it mean signature?
Signature events.
Okay.
Under, well, any event, how, you know, but definitely signature.
Any other additions or? If not, is there a second to Joe's motion?
Second.
Jack. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The next item is the approval of minutes from the previous meeting. In the packet.
Move to approve.
Joe, made a motion to approve the minutes written. Is there a second?
Second.
Laura, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item of the agenda is citizens to be heard.
The cameras are only on this side today.
There being no citizens to be heard, we'll move on to the next item. Just a minute.
Got here just in time. I apologize. We had 100 fourth graders in the building and the phones were ringing.
I almost knocked out a couple of them for you,
Well,
Brad.
yeah, I was going to say, and then I had to wait for them to cross the street. So, apologize for the delay. Pass these down. One for you and Carla. Pass those down. There's a lot of information on there, but I'll go through it and make it brief if there's any questions. Okay. So, it's a very busy time at the moment. Actually, it's always a very busy time. There's no single moment. So, all right, so you have a copy of my report and a copy of the advertising that I have put out for October through December. Fortunately, the budget was approved without any further cuts. Thank you to the Board of Aldermen. And so there was a lot of advertising I was not able to do simply because deadlines had already passed. So this is heavy on the newspapers. I'm not generally a fan of newspapers because it's usually a one-time deal and it's done. Magazines tend to have a longer shelf life, but so it's heavy on the newspapers. I have a radio for Rural Heritage Day and Deja Vu, and for the Holiday Christmas Festival. And then I was able to get advertising into Missouri Life and Show Me Magazine. Both of those magazines are going to have editorial on St. Genevieve. Show Me Magazine is going to be specific to the Holiday Christmas Festival. And the Missouri Life, that started with, they have been working on that since March. The state and Missouri Life had contacted me about Holiday Christmas, and then I gave them the phone numbers for Bob and for Felix Valley, Donna specifically, and I guess she gave them to Jim. So we will have a really nice article in Missouri Life about the holidays in St. Genevieve, specifically the French colonial celebration aspect.
Will those hit the stands before
Yes.
that first Christmas weekend?
Yes, they are planning on having those out the week of Thanksgiving. So I was able to incorporate all of the December events along with Show Me Missouri is December, January, February. So I have all of the events going through that I could find going through the end of February.
Is it possible to landscape this and just put what the thrust of the ad is? So
Yes, I can do that.
that would be helpful.
I can. And basically, any advertising that I do, and all of these ads are overall, come visit St. Genevieve, and then there's a calendar aspect to it that it shows our upcoming events.
And I guess I'm just saying, what part of the calendar, like the Christmas season?
Right.
Or whatever.
Right. I just didn't have space, but yes, I can do that in the future. So the Missouri Department of Tourism Co-op, this is where I am in my most insane time of year. I am working in 3 fiscal years at the moment.
Hey, hold on. While you're back on this, why 3 weeks ago you tell me we can't do a thing? You can't do a thing to help me.
Because I
Now you do get all this done. I spend 2 weeks getting stuff, digging and getting stuff, and it could have been done by you.
Because 3 weeks ago, I did not have a budget that was approved by the Board of Aldermen, and I was told I could not contract anything
Some
without
planning
approval.
needs to be done on that. That's for one.
Now, moving for next year,
I mean, that's a ridiculous. It's just totally.
now moving for next year, of the funding that was approved, a portion of that's going to be held so that I can contract for October, November, December, since I can't contract without an approved budget. I mean, that was what
I think you knew there was money coming, and a budget was coming, it's gonna be approved, and you could have done some planning to put stuff out.
No, I'll take a step back. Up until this year, I have been allowed to contract advertising. I was told by Martin that I could not contract on a budget that we did not have approved by the Board of Aldermen. So up until this year, I've never had that issue. I understand the issue, and now that I know, I have it planned for next year so that we won't find ourselves in that situation. But the prior 2 years that I've been here, I have been able to contract, and no one has told me I could not.
It's not looking ahead, that's all I can do.
I think the frustration was, if you were told, Jack, and told Annette that your budget is not yet approved.
I did tell them that. I started saying that when I was told back in, June? When we first submitted the budgets to be approved by the Board of Aldermen? I started letting you know then. We had a meeting outside front of the Welcome Center, you got very angry, and you walked off. That was back in June.
And you can't even do the free stuff for us. You don't have time to do that. That's was the original reason when you came in here 2 years ago, that we were gonna get help. And we got
Okay, so
nothing.
what do I take off of my priority list? Do I not take care of the budget stuff with the state?
It's your job.
Do I not take care of advertising?
All right, let's move on.
Well, no, I have requested a full-time employee because I am at a point, Jack, I work all day at the Welcome Center, I go home, I work all night at home.
Then maybe we need to get people down there that are capable of doing what needs to be done if you can't get it done.
I need to hire somebody. I need to hire a professional who knows what they're doing. But that has to be approved through the Board of Aldermen for me to hire someone who's full-time and understands and knows marketing. Okay, so Missouri Department of Tourism, Cooperative Marketing, like I said, I'm working in 3 fiscal years here at the moment. Fiscal 14 certification is due first. I have been working on all this. A week and a half ago, my computer got a virus. I lost everything, so I have had to restart over. I have that 80% done. I just have a few more things that I need to finalize. It will be in by November 1st. The fiscal year 13, first quarter reimbursement is due November 30th. Just waiting for a few checks to clear. Once those are clear and I get copies, I can send that in. We will be well ahead of the deadline. Fiscal year project summary report, fiscal year 12 project summary report is due December 1st. That, I'm still waiting for information to come in. A good portion of that is waiting for the public reports from the state on their public reporting site. That information probably will not hit until late November. So it's just, I've got as much done as I possibly can at this point, having had to restart after losing what I had. And the fiscal year 14 co-op application is due January 31st. And this is one where I could really use the board's help. This involves writing a marketing plan. This involves what areas you want to focus in on, what publications you want to do your advertising with, if you want to change or if we want to stay the same. These are things that we need to, that I could really use your input on. Moving on, I just finalized the fiscal year second quarter. So for the co-op, I'm already halfway through the year. I'm already halfway done. I'm going to begin third quarter in December. With that, a conversion study really needs to be done. If we were to get it started now, we would not have it done in time for the project summary report, but we would have it done in time for the fiscal year 14 application. And going back through all of the prior years, every single application on the award letter, they want a conversion study. And last year, I had a lot of phone calls that weren't very nice, letting me know that this has got to be done. Especially now when we're going into, with last year almost having lost the cooperative marketing program from the General Assembly, and they're very nervous about this year. They're not certain that it's not going to get cut this year for good. So I do have a bid to do a conversion study, about $2,500, and it was very ad hoc. Normally these cost $5,000 to $7,000 minimum. Because of the price, I will have to get bids. I will also have to list it in a newspaper. And then the entire process itself takes approximately 6 weeks for it to be done. Annual report.
Before you get off of that, I think they call a lot of people in the conversion study.
It's more than just calling.
But do we have a sufficient database of names?
Yes, I do. But that $2,500 is only, no, the $2,500 is only for 400 people. I have 400 names for them to call.
Because I thought we were talking about 12,000 names in
Yes.
previous discussions.
That's for a true conversion study. This is kind of like the Diet Coke of conversion studies.
Is most of it phone calls, or is it emails, or hard snail mail, or how do they do that?
To do any type of research, any type of marketing research, it's a combination of things that go into place. One of the issues that market research in general is having an issue with is most people have gotten rid of their landlines, and they are continuing to disappear at a rate. So they are finding different ways via mail and via email. So as much information that I can provide to them that contains all of that information will help them and help us. But to do the market research, visitors have provided me their information based on wanting me to send them a visitor's guide. So we can't immediately start cold calling. So there's a process to go through where you send them a postcard. We'd really like you to take part in the survey. One thing that we need to think about, and this was the other point that I forgot to write down in the notes, we need to have an incentive. A wine basket, cash works really well. If we could give a gift card, that entices people to take part to a study. If they can get their name in the hat for a drawing, or a gift or a card for X amount of dollars. And that's...
I've seen other towns, fill out the card, you're on a drawing for a $50 gift certificate each month.
Right.
But you get the thing.
Right, but there's some type of incentive. And cash right now specifically works really well because that's something everyone is short on. So that will be the other thing that we need to think about is what type of incentive would we like to add to have it performed.
Is the study just like their experience here, or what are they going to be asked?
It is a conversion study. Essentially what that does is, where did you see the ad? You requested information. Did you wind up visiting? So it's to see how many people actually came as a result of that ad or that advertisement. For this conversion study, the majority of the names where I have complete information is from AAA. So it will be a conversion study that is specific to the co-op grant and specifically to the AAA advertising. So this will give us information on, are our ads effective? Is advertising in AAA effective? And then it lets the state know, another question, did you receive the information? You called, you requested information, did you receive the visitor's guide? Where did you see the ad? And it kind of goes through that whole thing. So that's what the conversion is, to see if that ad converted into a visit to the town. So for fiscal year 12, I will have an annual report available. It will not be available till December. Again, this goes back to waiting for all of the information to come in with all of the different reporting agencies, namely the state. Right now, I can say that the city brought in more money this year than they brought in last year with tax revenue. What I can't say is what percentage of that was due to the tourism-related SIC codes. That information is what should hit the state reporting website in late November. So I will have that. That will help me with a few things. I will provide a report to you and to the tax commission. I will also have this report for the Board of Aldermen. And it will also be a part of my budget request to the county. So that will be something I'm working on come December.
I'll make a suggestion to you on the county budget. I think last year that money came out of the general
Yes.
fund. I know they're very tight on their money this year. I would suggest that you put in a grant request, the Seek Community Development Fund type grant request that will either come out of the, it's called the wholesome money, but it'll either come out of the economic development or the regular community development fund. And if that doesn't, and that has to be in by December 31st.
Which is the same deadline.
I would also suggest that you give them some data as to how many ads, of our ads, what percentage of them included county, not city things, or Facebook type stuff, show them for the $5,000 for that next year, and what your plans are for doing it next year.
Right, and that's what all of my reporting will have, and that's what I provide to them, so that will not be an issue.
Do you kind of have,
Well, don't you have, and by the way, I think don't you have to get a grant request approved by
I will.
Alderman?
Well, is the city going to be the grantee, or is the county going to be?
No, it will be the city.
Okay. So the $5,000,
It came from the county, but it came from the city.
the grantee would be the,
The money came out of the county budget. He
so we
said-
make an application to the foundation board, not to the county.
Yeah, no.
We don't ask the county to make the application.
No, you have to make the application.
Do you-
Just like you did a couple of years ago. on
Right.
mobile app.
Right.
do we, what are you anticipating to ask for? A certain project are you looking after, or just general funds, or a certain marketing campaign, or?
I have always requested money for marketing, and I have always requested $25,000. They have been able to grant $5,000. But it's similar to what I present to the Board of Aldermen and to the state, where I have information, where I plan to spend it, copies of our examples of advertising that is done. I didn't do the examples of advertising, but I show you guys magazines to the Board of Aldermen. But I do have that available for the county when I submit
And I didn't agree with what you've done in the past on the golf course too.
Oh, definitely. Well, and that was very specific. That was Gary, that he wanted his money slated to promote the golf course.
With the community foundation grant, asking for marketing dollars, I don't know. They typically go after bricks and mortar and fireman booths.
There's only
And,
three kinds of funds out there.
Yeah.
Out of the wholesome money, there's what's called a community development fund, and in the past, it's been safety-related items, especially the first 2 or 3 years, and fire and police and stuff like that. As a lot of those needs have been fulfilled, they have started opening up to the other parts. They also have a second fund that's called for economic development, and that's $100,000 a year in that fund, and the third one is a infrastructure fund.
And so, in knowing that, where do you think we best fit in what project, where do you think we would be
I think
most?
you could put, I would just submit a community development fund grant and let them decide if it comes out of the $200,000 one or the $100,000.
Okay.
Because there's no, they look at all of those together.
Oh, okay. They're not three separate grant applications, okay. Well, but then to go back to that, we haven't submitted one before for marketing.
Not to the community
Yeah.
development, because I wasn't aware that you could use that for marketing purposes.
Well, there is that, you're right, and I'm trying to think what they've given in the past under that economic development.
Well, the first year it went to the school, and last year it went to the port.
Oh, that's right, it went to the port.
And so it doesn't hurt, it doesn't.
Right, no, I mean, I can put one together.
I'm just thinking what would be our best chances? What would they most favorably look upon as we, if we brainstorm here and talk about, where we're trying to go, what we're trying to accomplish, what would be the best fit for that grant? If you just say, I want 25 grand for marketing dollars because I'm gonna, market the city and the county, is that as effective as I want to build a new, I don't, I'm
It
just.
just depends, you gotta sell it, this is a
Competitive grant,
economic development
yeah.
thing, that's why we do it here in the city also.
Yeah.
They'll decide which of those two funds it comes out of. So I would just submit a CDF grant and explain what you want to market, and what the benefits of that marketing are to the county, which is in revenue, tax revenue,
Right,
and what we have done in the past.
right.
Because as the DMO, we have to market for the entire county. And we have done, if you look at a lot of our, I would say a percentage of ads and things like that have featured county things at a higher percentage than what the money was of our total budget.
Well, all of our ads include, in the copy of our paragraph, it includes wineries in every one. But that's not so much because it's, the more we have to offer and the more diversity, the broader the market we're going to attract. So
Well, I disagree. I'm just
okay, I
saying,
was gonna say that's-
with the fact that the marketing we've done has been very broad and
Right.
includes a lot of the county,
Yep.
much more than if we just spent $5,000 on county marketing. And if you look at our Facebooks, if you look at our Google analytics, the stuff coming in on wineries and things like, it's,
Wineries were over bed and breakfast this time. No, the events were actually over bed and breakfast this time, for the month of September. I thought that was interesting. But no, the wineries always do perform well. Okay, then that brings us back over to the website. Speaking of the website, looking at our mobile views to the website, they're anywhere from 20 to 25% of our monthly views. This is a huge increase over last year. I do not have a report set up. I am working on a report for this.
it was about 10% last year. It changed in about February. I think 22% was the highest month that we've had over the last 2 years. And the question is, why is that percentage increasing? And one of the things that we moved up on Google.
I was going to say, I can tell you why that's going up, because there's research at that conference I just went to. Smartphones and the access to smartphones, and the people who have smartphones and their use of them while they travel has gone up. So this increase in mobile visits to a website is not unique to just St. Genevieve. That is something that's being seen across the board, regardless if it's another tourism website or if it's Apple or if it's any other business. All of their mobile websites and with the iPads or the tablet forms, and the tablets really took off earlier this year. So there's that dual access outside of the traditional desktop application.
I think about 75% are iPad and iPod.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and it's only going to grow more. So we have, as Bob was saying, we have a grant for a mobile website. The city is also in a position where we need to start working on taking over the maintenance of the desktop website. So I'm looking at some grant opportunities that we can look at to help supplement what money that we do have currently set aside in the budget to help with updating that website, making sure that it's friendly and easy and fun. And then with the mobile website, so and the desktop, the sites, the visits to the desktop site are by computers are still going through the roof. I mean, I think it was 200%. If I remember off the top of my head correctly for the month of September. So
I
that's,
think it was
it's,
5,400.
yeah, and compared to last year this time, it's incredible. So this is definitely something that we need to focus on, and that was part of, with the Tour and Travel Research Association meeting that I went to in Indiana. They were really focusing in on, you've got to get your website, you've got to get your social media together, you have to have the correct policies in place. They gave us 2 examples of the nightmares that occurred where one was off a YouTube video that went viral because some people got a hold of it and made negative connotations. And it turned into this huge nightmare that wound up having the governor of Indiana having to get involved. And the other one was an ad that was placed by South Dakota. Same thing. So having these types of policies in place, posted, ready to go, so that way we have, if this occurs, who do we call? How do we get this managed as quickly as possible? And being a city entity with Sunshine and having to be careful about what we remove and not remove, by having all of this posted ahead of time. And I did send a social media policy to Martin the other day to have him look at and see, is this something that we need to send through the Board of Aldermen? Is this something that needs to go through the city attorney before we place it up? It's a very generic, across-the-board social media policy that everyone can.
If we adopt a social media policy and somebody violates it, how do we enforce it?
If it's social media, if someone is posting something to one of our Facebook page and it violates the social media policy, I remove it.
Can't you do that anyway?
Technically, because we're city, no. That was how we were informed. You can hide it, but you can't completely delete it. And I guess it goes with if someone were to want copies of our postings for Sunshine, I didn't quite all understand the legalities of it. But this is what, after having several, like I said, with Indiana and South Dakota and the issues that they had, they in turn had to implement all of these policies, and had they been in place prior, they could have stopped a lot of the negative and nightmare that occurred as a result. And it comes to, getting hold of your webmaster and having things pulled down. Anything that would require a webmaster, we could go in and take care of. If we find someone using our copyright logo in a way that's negative, then we have recourse.
Copyright gives you standing in court.
Correct. And we do have a copyright on our brand.
I got that, yeah, that's clear to me. The other stuff isn't so clear to me. I don't understand how the policy, what teeth it gives you, but I'd be more than happy to have somebody explain it to me.
You have Frank take a look at it.
Well, I'll talk to him.
Huh?
Yeah, we'll talk. I'm going to pursue it. It's just, to me, the impact of it isn't clear. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I just wonder.
Yeah, they gave a lot of
How useful
information
it is.
about the legalities to it, but I'm not a lawyer, so a lot of that went over my head. So Frank will probably be able to explain that far better than I can.
Okay.
Just a couple comments. So I was in the Tourism Tax Commission meeting the other night, and you had indicated that you plan to wait on the website until you redo the main website.
I had hoped to do that, but I
You
don't
don't
think
have
it's a
to.
good time. Yeah.
You can put a PHP or a JavaScript so that when somebody hits the main website, it tells it's a cell phone.
Yes, no, I spoke to Bo afterwards, and.
The other thing that you said was that you discussed this mobile website with our electronic committee and with this council. I look back and it's never been discussed. I would suggest that you have a meeting with the website oversight committee to have a discussion on the mobile website and on the conversion of the main website.
Okay, I had a conversation with Beth and with Bo, which I realize is not the website committee, but I think I was referring back to, and I may not have been clear about who I was talking to, but that went back to that Indiana conference where they were talking about the importance of the mobile website.
It was specifically the Tourism Advisory Council and the electronic committee.
Okay,
So
I know I have brought up the importance that it's something that we need to focus on, but I do realize now after having having a conversation with Bo, after the tax advisory commission, that I don't need to wait.
But I really would encourage you to deal with the website oversight committee.
Yes,
Put
I
in
agree.
place in June. We've
Right,
not had a meeting
I
yet in 4 months, and we're moving ahead on this stuff, and we need to know what the hell's going on.
I don't
I
even
thought
think
they
the
would.
website committee knows that you wanted to reconvert the entire website.
I sent an email out. I know I sent
Not,
an email out.
not the electronic committee, the website committee, which are
I
two
thought they
different
were one and
things.
the same.
They are not.
They are not.
Okay, who is on the website committee?
You, Martin, Dina, Steph, and Beth.
I know
And
I
Brad
sent
Arnold.
out- Oh, Brad. Who's Brad Arnold?
He's the president of the Chamber of Commerce, which the chamber still owns the tourism website.
Okay, so that's a separate committee outside of the one we have here.
The electronic committee on this one deals with things other. in
The
addition-
website committee for the Tourism Advisory Council, so I still have two different
No,
committees.
no,
No.
no. The electronic committee can get into a lot of different things.
I know, I'm past the electronic committee. I'm
So
talking
there is no
about the
website committee on this council.
On this
There is-
council.
There it is.
This is,
That's not for this council.
there wasn't, you remember when you first got here, there was a website
Right, it was
oversight.
completely separate with the, no, and that's fine, and we can do that. Actually, that was on my final things to the bottom that I've written on mine because I had it, was that I need to set up a meeting with the website. Wade Wilson has volunteered his time. He is a web designer, website gentleman for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. His wife is here in town, and he has volunteered his time to speak to the website committee. And so just his only request was that it's in the evening, so that it doesn't interfere with his work as professional. So, and that was the other part. What is a good meeting time for a website committee? In the evening, and what time? And then going back to the website, the only other thing that I've seen that we need to think about adding on the wine index page, when you get to the front page and there's wine country and you click on it, we have all the wineries, but I think we should also have a link to the Route de Vin, the RDV wine trail on that page as well, because that specific events that they host. So that went on far longer than I planned on it taking. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Do we have a date then when the website committee wants to meet?
Well,
'Cause I'm kinda-
since half of them aren't here,
I think you just have to arrange it like you do at any meeting. Take
Just
some
let 'em know
motion
and go.
and put some alternatives out there.
can I get a copy of that when we're done?
When you were putting your proposed budget together, you furnished us with a listing of the ads that you wanted to do.
Yes. that was-
Have you updated that now that you know how much money you have out of the city budget?
I did, but it's part of the things that I've lost as a result of my computer crashing. It is not high on my priorities, given that I have some really tight deadlines coming up with the co-op.
I think it would be important
But it
that
will-
by December, the end of December.
It will be before I complete it this summer.
One of the things I think we need to do is to let the community, the businesses know when an ad's going to be placed. So if they choose to also advertise in that magazine, it's more effective. The advertisements that have showing up in the Feast magazine have looked really good.
And that gentleman actually did go door to door to the businesses. That was a part of the deal for that specific. He came to me asking for an ad, and I suggested doing a community page, where if I took that first top half, and then I gave him the name of businesses that I know would be interested in placing advertising. And there's some that I know will always say no. So I sent him around. So he came around all 3 months and knocked on doors. to get ads in place. But yes, no, that is actually something that should be a part of fiscal year 14 when we turn in that co-op application. All of our advertising for fiscal year 14 should be a part of that marketing plan and the action plan. But I haven't been able to do that, so that's.
It's just, again.
No,
it-
no,
it-
I understand the
Looks like
priority,
it
but
could be.
trying
Mhm.
that between now and the November 1st with my first deadline, no. My first deadline concern is the fiscal year 14
So
certification.
we'll just say in the future, let's do it that way, because you've already done a lot of your advertising, and businesses don't have that opportunity if they want to advertise at the same time.
Many times I have done that, the cooperative advertising. Some have taken part, some have not taken
It's
part.
their choice.
Oh, and that is, I'm not saying it is or it isn't. But that is something that I do try to do whenever possible. When if it's something that I know is going to fit within their budget. And some of the magazine advertising that we do, we can barely afford to do it.
Well, the other thing is the 16.5 or 16,000 with the Tourism Tax Commission. How close are you to resolving it, how that's going to be spent?
I'm not sure. I'm assuming that the $1,000 that they voted on the other night for Facebook advertising is the direction they want to go. I still feel as though I've not been given clear direction of where they want to go. As far as advertising, and I don't know if it is going to be in line with the fiscal year 13 marketing plan.
Is that a discussion that happens? I guess that was the first Tourism Tax Commission meeting. How do you normally come to agreement on what you're going to use that money for? Is it all
I gave them a proposal the same time that I gave the Tourism Advisory Council a proposal. The impression I got is that it was rejected and that they wanted to come up with their own suggestions. The first suggestion that I've been made aware of is the Facebook advertising. I know there was some talk about B&B.com, but they use Google advertising. And so there's no guarantee that if you go through and purchase the Google advertising that your ad will actually show up on that site. And then there was one other site, TripAdvisor. Looking at the ads that are on TripAdvisor, it's Fiji, it's American Airlines, it's companies that have huge dollars to be able to spend. So, sorry.
There's also some billboard discussion, is that what?
I'm just trying to get to a resolution, so.
There was the, but I haven't heard any further.
Jack, could you take that back to the Tourism Tax Commission and see if we can try to resolve that?
Okay.
Okay, any other questions of staff at this point? Moving on to old business, ferry website. I had a note from Stephanie Greminger. She's actually working on doing the website with
Ron Inman.
With Ron Inman. So one of these days we should pick that up. The signage update.
I don't know where this falls in there too, but while we were briefly talking about the ferry, they were talking about some signage, and I don't know if this is something that who would maintain, but putting up a sign closer to the downtown area before you get all the way up to the ferry to find out that it's closed, a manual sign. And I don't know whose jurisdiction that would fall under. But I've heard that over the years that, the time you drive all the way up there and you find out.
On the other side of the river.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Down the
They had that too. But I think that would be something, if we're proactive about it, I think that would be
it's something
helpful.
We would advise the ferry on.
Well,
It's their business.
and Ron Inman has said that. He said he just doesn't have the manpower to keep the sign updated. So I don't know what the solution would be, but I guess,
Maybe it's one of those flip signs like the business.
Yeah,
Closed, open.
Yeah. But I don't know,
Okay.
is there such a thing where it's remotely activated? Do they make such a thing? That'd be kind of handy. You
Like
just,
a big
on
neon
your
sign.
smartphone, you just hit yes or no, or open or close. That would be fairly handy.
Pass that note on to those guys.
Again, I don't know whose jurisdiction that would, fall under. If it's the ferry would love to have it. They just don't have the manpower operate it, so.
Okay, on the signage update, with the big signs, we're back, I guess, when you were MoDOT, or have you heard anything from Don yet?
No, we just put it back in the office Monday, but he hasn't communicated, so I'll
And-
send him another email.
Yeah, and you were working, you got the materials, I think, for the two
Materials are in.
kiosks.
We need to get the design on the poster that's gonna go in those, so we can get that printed.
Okay, since Steph's not here, I'll have to wait on the next one. The Herald reciprocal agreement, I see that we have the Herald button on our webpage. I don't think we've got it on your page yet.
Stephanie's talking with Jennifer Counts on that.
Okay, so that'll close that out. Thank you. And I think we're gonna have to wait for Steph to talk about this press release training too.
That's being held where? At Packy?
Back to you. Have a good meeting.
Then we'll hear about air quality.
What time is that, Bob?
It's from 7 to 9. Perhaps, can we make a motion to amend the agenda and move ahead to the committee reports until Steph gets back?
I so move.
Second, Jack, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Anything from the electronic media?
No, we actually have not met recently, but I would like to make the comment that with the revisions of the website, I think that should be a priority that's set forth before any changes are even discussed or even made. So.
Hi, Mike. Okay, anything on printing here? Kelly?
No, I haven't had a chance to meet with Jan. I mean, he did the rough draft for the brochure last month, but I don't know if he's talked to Kim about that or not. I haven't gotten with
Would
him.
you go through Stephanie for Kim to do that?
We all three are working together.
Just so there's a clear understanding.
Yeah, she was gonna contact Wilmore to make sure if they didn't want to be, that they were gonna sign off on that, so.
I would like to have a meeting with you and bring in Frank Rolfe. In our sign committee meetings, we're talking about some Frank made us some suggestions about our visitor guide and how we look at visitor guide as advertising outside of St. Genevieve, but when visitors get here, we need to have something else as they're walking around town to do when they're to make it a little bit easier than trying to unfold our big thing. We're also in the sign committee starting to talk about signage on houses to make the stories. We're not telling our story. We're missing a lot that could make St. Genevieve a lot more interesting. So you see different kinds of signs on houses with different dates, but we've started a discussion on that next step forward, and it does involve how to use a visitor guide and maybe a downtown guide. Talking about maybe just going to an 8.5 by 17. It's in a big pack, you just tear it off rather than all this folding stuff. So I want to set up a meeting with you and Jan and Steph, and maybe invite Frank in to hear what he said. Okay. Tourism. Yesterday, we had a brainstorming session. Gotta get to my notes here. We actually went through.
We skipped over a couple of things. We're
We
going to
kind
come
of went
in.
down to bottom since you were up.
Okay, I apologize.
We did some brainstorming on the question of what kinds of things could we implement to make St. Genevieve more of a destination? And then we kind of tried to rank those in order of priority. I believe we're going to have another session to kind of flesh those out. But if I'm trying to remember correctly, things like wineries, national park site, more things to do in the evening.
River development.
River development, things for small groups to do, were some of the top items that came out of that. And I think what we really need to do is kind of flesh those out a little bit more. And there's a main thing that you do, but under that you got to have actions to make it happen. And that's what I think we need to. Again, it was a start, and we'll have to come back and do a little bit more of that. The second, I guess, that's the second part of the meeting had to do with the visitme.com website. And we'll talk about that later. Let's go. Anything from the resource committee, Jack?
We did have a meeting, and I walked off without my notes. We might back up and talk, since Mike's here, ask that question about the tax commission, if you want.
We were having, the tax commission had set aside 16,000 for marketing. And I know there was a preliminary discussion, and Steph came in with some suggestions. You guys had some ideas. How do we get that resolved and get a plan together?
Well, we had several suggestions from the commission, among the commission members. And the main suggestion was that we try to do something on the internet. So, and this was 3 months ago. And so I began to, asking people to research this and, within a commission, come up with some ideas. One of them they came up with was Gary Shields came up with, had to do with the State Bed and Breakfast Organization. He hasn't come back with anything, and I sent word up there that I wanted to talk to the guy that's in charge, and he hasn't come back to me either. But the other one was to do something, possibly with Facebook. So I contacted, I had heard that Beth's husband was, in that field, and so I contacted him. And we talked several times, but then they went on vacation, we couldn't meet, and finally when we did meet, I asked him to do a presentation, and we did that a week ago. And the commission voted to spend $1,000 just to see how it would work, because, we're not real familiar with the response or what the response would be. I believe Jack made the motion, but the motion was to do an age limit, to do females, to do two sizable areas, one of them being Belleville and the other one being Wentzville. And the reason why we did those two is you can narrow in on those, but you can do a range around them, which both of them will overlap into the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County, which takes in a lot of other communities. We had suggested 30 miles, but they don't do 30. They do a 10, a 25, and a 50. So during that, we had said to him, if you have to tweak it, okay, so he came by to see me, and he said, and right there he had his notebook, that he could bring it up, and he said, if we tweak it to 50 miles from the 25, it doubled our response, because that means that you're in a bigger area, so you have more people looking at it. And then he said, well, we were going from 40 to 65. He said, let me show you, if we just adjust it to the age of 37, he said, it would add us another 10,000 people. We talked about the younger people, and he and I both said that, at this time, we really don't need to have the younger people looking at it, because they're going to be looking at it to go to the wineries, and that's not going to help the businesses here in town. So we said we'll stay away from that. But we said, well, we would do that and do it for a full week, and then he's going to meet with us, and the only thing I can do is call a work session just to look at that and see what he thinks and what it is. The more people that look at it, the less it costs per click. So by adding all those extras, we went from like 21,000 in Belleville to, I can't remember what the number was. It was pretty good size. The reason why we decided to go, and we did it in both places, to go to 37 is that, and looking at the demographics of Wentzville, O'Fallon, St. Charles, St. Peter's, Troy, St. Louis County, Chesterfield, you have a lot of younger families living there. And so they're not in the age like they are in the city of St. Louis. And so that's why we dropped it to 37. And that was his suggestion, and I said, well, that's tweaking it, that's okay, we'll do it that way. So we're gonna give it this $1,000.
You're doing Heritage Day, Rural Heritage Days?
Yes, what we're doing is we're pointing it to Rural Heritage Days. You know, you have to give them some reason to come. And I don't want to just give them the reason that we have shops and restaurants and lodgings and wineries. So we pointed it to that. And I think it was costing
It was
$1 something.
It was like $1.50 per person. Did he also talk to you about setting up the ad focused toward men using the antique tractors?
No, he didn't say anything about that.
Okay, because that was in that email that I.
Yeah, no, he didn't say anything about that.
Are you going to repeat this for?
Well, we did talk about that. I asked him what he thought, and he said because it can be updated so quickly and it doesn't cost us much to do it.
Right.
It's not real expensive like making changes to a website.
For those Facebook, you can get a certain size ad, and everybody gets the same size.
Same size, yeah,
But you
it's
can
about this
direct-
big.
Yeah, you can direct it to certain demographics.
And he has two
That's it.
pictures on there. He has a picture, actually, I think Jack's in the one picture,
Yes.
with a hat on or something. So you have to be ready to sign autographs. And the other one is of the field or something because of that. So there are two different ones. But he said, what is your next event? And I said, well, the truth is, our next real event after this one isn't until the Christmas. Well, he said, because Facebook is so now, we want to do it now, he said, I would suggest that we do something else at the interim for 2 weeks, as soon as that's over. Anything, come up with something. But he said, but then 2 weeks before the Christmas, do that. But he said, if you changed it for each one, like New Year's, like E&E, and then the next one after that isn't until the King's Ball. But he said, we should come up with something, and so that's what we need to talk about.
Yeah, I think, as I heard you guys talking, this is a trial to try.
It's a trial. It really is a trial, because he had talked about spending $500, but we just said that's not quite enough to spend. And if you're doing two locations, and if you demographically take that 50 miles, they do overlap somewhat. But it does, the nice thing about Belleville, it takes in South County. It actually will take it all the way down to Crystal City and Festus, which is all of South County and Belleville and
It'd be interesting to see the
Arnold.
analytics that are
Yeah.
coming off.
Yeah, and I've been meeting with Bo almost daily, going over that information. And this is some of the information that you guys talked about was what he and I had met with. The cost per clicks were way too high, trying to go after, since it is specific to the Rural Heritage Day, that has a very broad appeal, so it wouldn't necessarily be our traditional demographic that we go after. We can go a little bit lower in age and hit some of those who have the children, go a little bit higher and hit the grandparents.
I think
So there were.
it's important to know which days he makes changes, and I'm sure there's probably a
It's
law,
all
because when you look at the analytics,
Right, and we sent an email before any changes were done, and that was what prompted the phone call with Mike.
no, I'm just saying, as you change on a day, you've got to be able to look at your analytics to say, hey, this worked better than that worked,
Yeah,
essentially.
because I think Wednesday was the day that he was going to change, so we did Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and I think that,
And then
and we changed it Wednesday.
Where does it direct them to?
Down.
Once they click on those web ads, where does it direct them to?
An event page on visitstgen.com that's specific to Rural Heritage Day.
Okay, cool.
Well, if they go to that and they're not really interested in it, they can go to anything that's on Visit St.
Yes,
John.
But it's
I
kind
just
of
want- that
interesting, I
was-
saw some of the analytics for the first part of this week. And most of our electronic ads, people don't look at it as many pages electronically. Like Alex, even Post-Dispatch or Belleville News-Back, the bounce rate is a lot higher. The time on the site is very low, so we're gonna have to figure out how we can get more people going from onto our regular, some of our other stuff to make it more interesting or something.
Well, it's not so much to make it more interesting, I think it's to make it less cumbersome. There are a lot of internet websites, Post-Dispatch is doing it, they're cleaning up their site, less is more, and in marketing, less is more. You don't want it to be a textbook. So we have all the content, and this will be something that will be handy when it comes time to refreshing and updating the website, and in that you want to sell sizzle, you don't want to sell steak, or you don't, I mean, why buy the steak if you can get the cow for free type of mentality. And the deeper someone has to go in, especially if they're accessing it on their phone, we'll deal with that. Yeah, that'll be dealt with. But, that's just another one of those things. And the website now really reads probably more than what somebody wants to go into. So if we can utilize things such as having an event-specific web page, like we have, I think that's going to work out really well.
We've had that ability all along.
But none of the advertising that has been placed, like for the summer concert series, I don't know what address you guys, because they did that on their own. And I don't know if they took it just to the generic St. John website.
No, I'm just saying on visitstjohns.com, we've had that ability, because I know we do it on the foundation website. We're going to have a conference or spirit reading. We set up a separate page for that.
But
and when it's over, you take it off.
As the city, I
That's what we
try
do.
not to advertise any one specific event. I advertise the city, and here's some events that we have coming up.
So you're suggesting these won't be on the city, on the Visit St. John website,
No.
these unique events, or they're going to have to be on somebody else's website?
The cost we have now is $100 per page. Most of the committees can't pay that. We certainly can't afford to do that. Hopefully, moving into a new format, we would
I
be able
think
to
you've
do
been
that.
able to do it.
I can put it on our event calendar.
No, you can add a page. I think you've got all the passwords and stuff to do that.
I don't have, I'm not a web designer.
I think most of it is off of the, just put up a
He said it was all
PDF.
PHP, it was code.
You used it. I think
Well,
we've
no,
got to
I-
get it to the point that we can.
And that is what we can do by, when we bring it over to the city and having something that the city can work with, as far as costs being the biggest issue. Being able to utilize WordPress, or being able to utilize, I don't know code, and from what I understand, everything on that site is PHP and it's code. And even Bo, when he set up the page for the Rural Heritage Day, Chuck had to come back and say, there's a few things that he had to do, and that's what Bo does.
I think it was you could have enhanced it because you didn't have all the buttons on it.
I don't know all the details, and actually, no, it was about the specific page, it wasn't even referring to.
Do we get charged $100 to,
Do an event page right now, in
on
addition to.
on the Visit St. John website?
Mm-hmm, and that's in addition to the cost just for the quarterly weight maintenance.
That's
which
what-
runs $900.
That's what Chuck charges us to set up an additional page?
And how many pages have you set up in the last year?
I have only set up a few because I can't afford to do it.
And there was no charges for any of
There was
them, so
none.
I'm trying to figure out.
No.
I was told that they were charged. I don't see anything that involves the website because that was a deal that was worked out between the city and the chamber.
There were no charges.
There was no charges for those pages.
I can only go off of the information the webmaster has provided.
Did he provide you an invoice for $100?
No, because none of that goes to me because the city.
Then he didn't charge you for $100.
I don't see the invoice that.
I know you
get.
don't, because I get them and I send them directly to Martin.
Exactly, so I never see them.
I'm telling you, he never has charged you for an extra page.
Okay, but I can only go off the information that Chuck has told me because I don't see those invoices.
So Chuck told you he charged you $100 for a page.
He said he charges $100 for the event pages.
That's interesting. He's never billed you for $100 for
Okay.
an extra page.
Short of you telling me that, I had no knowledge. I could only go off of what He
I
can
don't-
provide it to me in an email. I can hunt it down through my archives. No, I probably
Is it
can't
an
because I
estimate?
lost everything.
Is it an estimate of what it would cost to do a web page?
No, it was when he had first set up one of the ones for the chamber series. Not this last year, but the prior year. He said that one's $100.
Well, as I've told Martin several times, when you go to the new website, you have to define what you're gonna do in your center and what the maintenance, whoever's gonna do the website stuff.
And that would be one of the reasons why we have Wade Wilson coming in to talk about what can be done.
no, you're gonna have to decide, because you're not.
Well, and that's going to be the oversight committee. You know, I can't decide that on my own. When I make decisions on my own,
No, you have to.
Or if I
wait a
stand out
minute.
and
You
make a
have to
comment?
You have to know what your capabilities are gonna be.
right,
Because the website committee's not gonna go down and put the ads together or the
Correct.
paste. You're either gonna have an outside person do it, or you're gonna have to do it out of your operation. And I think you need, when you go out for quotes, you're gonna have to decide and come to an agreement on what you're gonna do and what that website maintenance.
How many of these are we talking that we would have to do a year? I mean, we don't have that many events. We have 10, 12, 15 events
Well,
in a
it-
given year, or maybe not even that many, that we have to add special ones.
it ultimately, well, we'll take a few steps back. First, the website committee has to decide what they want to do. From there, I can figure out what can be done out of my building, what can be done with the maintenance
You're the one that's
contracts.
proposing the changes to
Change,
it.
yeah.
And so I think you need to sit down and say what you wanna do with the website.
And that's why I'm bringing in someone who is an expert in web design, because I don't know all of the details. Marketing is a very broad area, and nobody is an expert in every area of marketing. There's 25
I would
areas I
ask
can
Ray
think
to
of
be
off the
able
top
to
of
tell
my
you
head.
what it's gonna take to do certain things, and you're gonna have to then say, I have the capability within my department, to either
And
do it
that's why
or
I'm going to
not.
have the meeting set up with a web professional to come in and talk to the website committee.
You can have that discussion before you come into the meeting.
I would rather have, like, for example, I don't know legalese, so being able to tell Martin all of the legal, it was told to me, but a lot of it went over my head. I don't want to have that occur. I would rather have the website committee present with the website professional so they can answer and ask the questions so that nothing is lost in translation. And actually, that is what I have been told is the best idea to do by my boss.
Well, it sounds like we need to get the website committee together. And Stephanie probably needs to have some ideas and suggestions of what you're expecting to get changed and to be able to have, some of the questions available so that you can ask to see what's possible. Because if we can get everybody in the room, because this website is one of the most important things that we do. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
drives our Facebook, it drives every piece of print ad that we put out there, so we've got to get this website figured out.
And I think the website does it well already, myself.
Yeah, I think our
So-
website looks good.
Yeah.
But, to be able to update it, to be able to direct it to certain pages, to have everything out there, I think the website looks great. So that was no hit on the.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I know. I didn't take it that way.
Okay.
I mean, I'm
it's
just saying, I don't see the reason for an overhaul myself, because I think what we have currently is doing its job effectively. And
The one thing I'll constantly hear is getting things posted on there or updated or linked to it. Because I think you're right. I think the website looks good
Well-
and directs people
I
efficiently.
mean, I will tell you that Chamber has the same webmaster, and I've never had a problem getting anything updated. Fast, neat, friendly. I send it to Chuck, and it's up there in a matter of within 30 minutes. So I have a hard time believing that you can't get that stuff done, because I get it done just fine.
I will have to go through my backups and look.
I mean, I
because
just-
It's always a big long conversation. I've copied Martin in on them. I think I've copied Bob in on a few of them. I haven't? All right. No, it has been extremely frustrating.
Well, and when I talk with Chuck hasn't, he doesn't
Plus, the
talk
other
to you. He
people-
hasn't talked to you in months.
I talked to him on the phone the other day.
You have the French Heritage.
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying,
Signature,
when I say, well, did she send you this? No, I didn't get this. So I send it to
July,
him.
you have the music
You know, Rural Heritage Days stuff, for example, I sent that to Chuck because he never said, so he never got it from you.
Because I wasn't getting it from me, I didn't have detailed information. I'm putting up what I can. But
Did,
like
have
I
you
said,
asked Jack for the information?
Actually, it all comes from Mary Goody.
Because I just call Jack and say, Jack, I need the updated stuff, and he gets it to me. I'm just saying, I just don't see what the reason for an overhaul.
No, I need to be able to hire people. Ultimately, is what this comes down to.
Well,
Like I said,
we can't talk about personnel in here at this time, but
No, actually, personnel is not in your menu at all.
we know, but we're tired of hearing you say that you need another person. Make a change and get that person. I mean,
I can't do it without.
I know you can't, but you need to go to your powers that be and say, I can't get this
It
done.
keeps me from being able to hire somebody.
You gotta let the ones that
No, no, no.
the ones that you have, you gotta make a change. I know.
No, I mean, no.
No, you can
I'm
talk about
asking-
personnel without, if it's in general, yes.
And this is general conversation. What
About
is
staffing,
preventing me-
talk about staffing. Start talking about specifics there.
To the Board of Aldermen, to a member, what is preventing me from being able to hire a full-time employee who is a marketing professional?
An additional person?
Yes.
I mean, because you
She
have
has
control
too
over
many
your, you have
already.
control over your budget as far as how you want to staff it. So to hire an additional person, you need the money to pay for it, you know? So, and right now, I don't think you have,
It was not
short of,
included.
yeah, with the way that your budget is written now, you don't have the money in your budget now to hire someone
An
new.
additional person.
Have an additional person.
Right.
Can you change what you have?
Sure, I mean, I would think you could. I mean, we don't, you know, most of our departments don't change job titles, I guess, you know, but, I
Things
mean,
have
if that's an idea that you want to do, if you want to change your personnel, a perfect example is, we used to have a Welcome Center Manager, I believe was the title, and we no longer felt like we needed a Welcome Center Manager, we needed a Tourism Director, and so we let go our Welcome Center Manager, and we went out to hire a Tourism Director. Of course, our old Welcome Center Manager was allowed to apply for the new, but she chose not to. So in that regard, you can change your staffing as far as that goes. So if that's something that you want to do, I don't even, it doesn't have to even come to the board, I don't think. I think probably maybe just Martin, because you'd have to get approval for a new job title, and maybe it'd have to come to the board, but I'm not sure.
In order to add more funds to my budget, I
Well,
have to go to. the
if
board.
you want to add additional person, yes, you would have to find more money someplace or cut money from someplace. And you could make a budget amendment to do that if you wanted to cut out all of your marketing dollars, let's say, and hire an additional person. Or if you wanted to cut out all of your utilities, you know, you could do that. If you want to turn off the air conditioner in the summertime and hire an additional person, you could ask for a budget amendment and change that around and hire somebody, you know, so.
Yeah, I don't have any play in my budget to be able to do that, so I would have to go with a budget amendment.
Yeah, to change one of your other ones. Or, like I said, you could structure your current staff if you wanted to go about it that way.
Now, when it comes to restructuring staff, I was my understanding, and I was told that I have to go to the Board of Aldermen for them to make the final call.
I'm not going to say yes or no. When we went about it with the Welcome Center Manager, when we got rid of the Welcome Center Manager, we had to approve more funds because there wasn't enough money in that budget to hire a tourism director plus the other staff. So we repurposed some of the existing money down there and then hired a tourism director with some additional funds. So that went to the board. But if Eric was looking to get rid of 2 police officers and hire a detective, I don't think that would have to come to the board. I think that would just be an internal decision as far as inside his department.
I was told-
But either way, if you want to make some changes, yeah, we'll get it figured out and bring the proposal to Martin, and then if if you want, and if it needs board approval, then bring it to the board. So if you do want to make some staff changes with your current budget, make that proposal to Martin, and if he thinks it needs to be brought to the board, then bring it to the board. And I think you'll have a pretty open-minded board that I know you're passionate about it, of getting that extra person. So I think you could probably sway the board to do that within the confines of your current budget. I mean, if it didn't require any extra money, I think you could get it done. If it's going to require extra money, I don't know if you're going to be able to find it out of the general fund if we can do it. But within your current budget, we can make it a budget amendment and bring it to the board, and I think you can get it approved. So if you want to, like I said, I guess it comes down, let's just, in theory, if you want to take 2 of your current personnel, merge it into 1, I think that's possible. Without too much work.
Okay. 'Cause
And
I
that's
have
not really
one-
adding anyone, that's just merging. That's
That's
just
changing.
Yeah, it's kind of
changing.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Well,
good.
there would be.
If you're asking for additional money, that's a different story, because I don't think we got it. But if you want to be
Right,
creative with your
there
current
would be an
budget, I'm
increase
sorry?
There would be an increase on benefits.
Again, you'd have to see if you take what you're currently, if you want to just look at your salary line item, if you can keep it within that or within reason, if it's $1,000 difference because you have to pay for some additional benefits, I'm sure we could find $1,000 or $2 to supplement the difference. But you start talking $40,000 to bring on another full-time personnel, no, there's no way. But so come up with an idea, look at where your current staffing is, bring it to Martin, bring it to this board, or bring it to the Board of Aldermen, and because I think that will help you. If you don't have the skills and expertise down there that you have now, then we've got to make some changes, because we don't want this holding us back. And I don't think Martin or the Board of Aldermen will, if you come up with a proposal that
I will.
fiscally makes sense, then there's none of us that are going to, I wouldn't think, would say
Okay.
no.
I'll come up with another one, but in all conversations I've had to Martin, it all.
Well, and up to this year, I know you would ask for an additional personnel, which was tough, because
So
you were
even
talking.
outside of that,
Okay.
even by doing what you just
Yeah.
talked about in theory,
Yeah.
that has also been, that has to go to the Board of Aldermen.
Bring it to us. We'll look at it, we'll discuss it. We're good about arguing about things at the board, so.
I never would have guessed.
Okay. Let's move on to new business. Previously, you talked about amateur sports certification for,
It's automatic with the regular fiscal year 14 certification. It's in the application.
are we going to apply for, is that money that they give out for amateur sports marketing in addition to the 25,000?
Yes, and they will decide if we qualify for it or not.
Are we going to apply for additional?
It's not a matter of applying for additional at this point. At this point, the certification process, you have all these questions, you have to answer every single question. So I am providing similar information to what was provided previously. I am adding in the fact that we have annual baseball tournaments, we have annual bike races, we've had a couple of 5K runs and marathons. So there's potential, but at this point, it's just saying, this is what we have, this is what we've done, this is what we're capable of.
We've talked about that before. What's that bring if we get that certification? We've had that, but I've forgotten. What is that?
It can bring additional dollars to advertise for regional sporting events, such as more.
And it's
baseball
on top
tournaments.
of the additional, the
Yes.
current co-op level that we have now?
Yes.
Is there a maximum amount that is entitled?
I believe we would probably be limited to 100,000. That's, I think, pie in the sky, though.
I think the state has a pool.
Yeah, they have increments that go upon what level you are, and we can level up. I mean, it is entirely possible that when we go to apply, because of everything that has been done since the last certification in the last 2 years, everything that I've done, could potentially pop us up to the next level. One thing that's going to hold us back is the lack of hotel rooms.
Is this something that you want to do, to add the sports designation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There isn't any reason why we couldn't have events held out on the river, fishing events, tournaments. There's regional fishers of men that would come in. We can have marathons, we can have more bike races. We already have 2 baseball tournaments that go very well, and if you go into any business, including the hotels, you know, they really depend upon those 2 weekends.
Sure.
I think when you read the criteria from the state, though, they're talking not just regional, they're talking national, and they're talking about out-of-state groups, not
Well,
in-state.
that would be regional, it would be one that, I mean, we are on the border with Illinois, so we can bring in sports teams, amateur sports teams from Illinois. And I think they fully realize that at our level, we're not going after the baseball Cardinals or the football, we're not going after the professional sports. They have to write it so that it's broad to fit all categories. But what we would be, I mean, and everybody would go within their capabilities, and we are certainly capable. We already have events that occur on an annual basis that are sporting events. The Missouri Road Race is a major sporting event that we have here every year, and have for the past 4 years. I mean, that is a statewide race, and we can bring in more of those. And once we have our trails and the 4th phase, I mean, that's something that we absolutely can do. It brings people into town. They stay in the hotel, so it puts heads in beds. They eat in the restaurants. I think the last bike race, I had several of the restaurants tell us that was one of their best weekends. You know, when they
I guess
start
the
talking
concern
about
is
park,
every meeting we hear that doing this state co-op takes all your time.
it does.
Why are we adding something on that we're not gonna, we don't, what facilities do we currently, do you have to have current facilities to qualify? So what sports are we going to?
Right off the bat, we can look at baseball, we can look at bicycle racing, we can look at marathons. Those are things that we already are involved in and we already have facilities for. They already bring in money, so there's a benefit to it. We also have the band competitions that come in.
Well, that's a high school, and I think our high schools do a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
This is, again,
But
I think you gotta be, this is not intended for just near stuff that
it would be just as much work. It's a matter of advertising and promotion. No, don't have the money, don't have the time, to bring some extra money. But these can be anything from a single day event to a multiple day event. You know, when we have the baseball tournaments, Kelly, how is your business on those weekends when the River Dogs have their tournaments in the spring and in the fall? Do you know off the top of your head? I know Station 2, I know if Beth were here, those are huge days for her. And I know you can't even get into McDonald's or Subway, and that generates tax revenue.
It's, I don't think those bring so much for my business. We get them in, but, I mean,
Because you're lying.
It wasn't
Yeah,
a
they're
thought
not-
in the destination or the meeting we had yesterday. Nobody thought, had that idea of sports.
I don't know, I'm just concerned that we didn't put any money in for matching grants in this category for next year in your budget.
Because I couldn't. If I'm not certified for it, I can't ask for it. We have to get the certification first. And at this point, this could be a completely moot conversation because we send in the certification and the state is the one who decides if we can or cannot go after it. And even if they do give us a certification for it, that doesn't necessarily mean we have to go for it. But in marketing, you have to think 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, what we do today affects where we're going to be 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So
I think when you look at what the state's given grants for in the last 3 years in this category, they've given 6 to cities like Independence, Jefferson City, St. Charles. Last year, that was 2 years ago, they did 6. Next year, they did 6. And then last year, there were only 2 that applied for that. And the groups they were bringing in were national softball tournaments, things like that, and talking about major room nights and things like that.
right, well, it all depends upon the RFP as well. And the state heavily is involved with teams, which is way beyond anything that we would do, and that deals with the national. But you also have to look at what the requirements were. You have to show and prove that you've had at least 2 years of marketing towards sports conventions, and we now have that. where we have marketed in, I
On
would
a
have.
national basis,
No, on a regional basis. You can do it on a regional basis.
outside of Missouri.
Oh, national, yes, we have had national advertising in publications for sports marketing.
And you
From a
tell us
directory.
how many leads we got from that? or inquiries?
I'd have to go back and look, but I would say we had a lot of RFPs sent our way. And that's how sports marketing works. They see your advertising, they send you an RFP request that you fill out and send back. Have I been able to send anybody back? No, because we don't have the hotel rooms at this point. But it is something that is well within our purview. Plus, we can tag with Farmington, we can tag in with Festus, Crystal City, Perryville. There's ways that you can have relationships and cooperation built, not cooperation, but cooperation built with these other entities in order to bring a golfing tournaments. I believe golfing was on the list. That's sporting events. That would fall within this type of marketing.
I was just concerned with your discussions all the time about lack of time.
Yes, and I do. And I tell you what, I work extraordinarily hard. I work all day, I take it home, I work at night. Last night, I was actually at the Welcome Center until after 8 o'clock. I do that.
Well, I guess my suggestion is just put this off for a year. Let's see if we get certified.
But we have gained so much ground at this point, and like Joe Rozier was saying, when you gain this much, when you start to gain, you don't want to take away because it takes up 3 times as long to get back to where you were. So we have already made the gains. We need to continue.
You're just putting in for the certification this year
Well, no, we have to put in certification, period.
for the amateur sports.
No. For the cooperative marketing grant.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the questions on the entire cooperative marketing grant request that is sent in.
Yeah.
They'll decide if we qualify or not. They also will decide if we qualify for marketing for business meetings, which we have done that, and we're ahead of the ball on that. And we've even brought in.
So what do you think?
several
It
business meetings.
takes a half hour, an hour to fill out the questions on this part of it, and we can decide at a later date if we want to apply for any of the money from that?
Yes.
I guess if we get certified, then we can have the argument if we really want to pursue it or not. Because I can see both sides. I mean, What else you got for us, Bob?
Visitor survey update. This is an old item we tried to talk
Bob,
about.
before you move on to old business, we didn't cover some stuff on their old business.
Oh, I'm sorry, right. The November 5th press release, or press release training.
Everything is ready to go. It's going to be held at the extension office. Is there anything specific that you would like? Sandra Cabot is going to be the one providing. It's going to be through SEMO. They have this really awesome new program down there that's aimed toward small businesses and events. So I'm very excited about that. But is there anything specific that you would like to see have? What do you want?
Well, from what I'm talking to Sanders, she says her part is there's 3 segments. It's media relations, public relations, writing press releases. The other part that I think has to come from your office is what's out there that people can advertise in. If you're not going to send them out from your office, how can organizations do it? Free advertising spots, newspapers, whatever, everything. I think that's the last part of that.
That was, well, I was, and to dovetail off of that is the process after it. After you get your press release written, how do you go about getting it published? Internally here in the St. Genevieve market and outside to the broader St. Genevieve area market.
Okay, I would have
Have you issued a press release on this to sometimes and to the Herald?
You can't write a press release until you've had a press release training, can you, Bob?
Oh, she's a professional.
Oh, okay, all right.
that. I have not yet because it was a matter of waiting on some final, but now I have the final, so I will get that.
Because you'll have to get it in for next week's newspaper.
Correct.
The other thing, I would make direct invitations to event groups.
Yeah, Bob, if you've got somebody that's gonna hold a golfing thing, if we're gonna do sports, wouldn't you think that somebody from the golf club would come to this. If you're gonna hold something, a baseball tournament, has to do with the schools, wouldn't you think they would send someone? It's not up to her to write the press release for those people. They've got,
Well, that's not what we're talking about.
they've got to learn how to do it.
Right, and that's what this.
That's what, and they need to come to these things. Same way with the Jour de Fête people. We've sponsored that for years, and it shouldn't be her job to write the Jour de Fête.
Well, that's why we're having this.
Yeah.
But
So are we sending the invitations out to the people
That's
that
what-
have
that's
those
what we'll-
events?
That's what I'll do. And then also, this is going to be held in conjunction with the Mississippi River Hills Association. So we have, their members are invited as well. And by doing this, it is costing this to be, this will be no cost to us.
Yeah.
So we should have a good turnout.
It's coming up fairly quickly, but I can see the benefits in this because so many of our groups, most of the ones that I belong to, aren't very good at writing these and getting these out and taking advantage of all these things. And I got to be curious, is there any way that we can, I don't want to say punish, but maybe incentivize these groups for going? Is there anything that we can do to, get the golf course to come down, get the high school to come down, get the Lions Club there, to get the Casey's, to get the Lagionis there? How can we? What can we hold over their head? What can we incentivize them with? What can we do? Because every person that we can get to this and teach them and train them how to do these press releases helps everybody else. Because every time we have a more successful event for one event, it helps all the other ones. So how I'd like to brainstorm real quickly. What can we do? Personal invitations to all the groups, because I'm sure we can name off 30 or 40 groups right away that should be there. How can we get these people there and teach them that it's not that hard to write a press release?
I think we, a lot of us are involved. We need to push at the same time that Steph is sending out invitations to groups to talk it. We need to get them there. Maybe we can personally drag them into doing it. It's going to help their events.
Absolutely, but they haven't done it yet. So for you to say it's going to help you, it's going to draw more people to your event, that's all well and good. But you know that if you don't have a goal with tangible numbers, or if you don't have a physical $50 gift certificate holding over your head, or if you don't have a penalty if you don't show up, we're not going to. So what can we?
Well, your one penalty could be if you want her to advertise it with her city tax dollars, they're going to have to send someone there. If they don't, they can have their event, but she's not going to promote it.
But that's kind of, I hate to
She
do
has
that,
to say,
I know.
but that's just the reality of it.
I know.
People have to understand, there's a reality here. If you can't cooperate with it, the tax dollars can't be spent.
And that's
It's
kind of
just
the
that
thing.
simple.
That's kind of where I was going. So
Well, you just have to explain it in some way that doesn't upset them, it doesn't
Yes.
make them feel like you're threatening them, but at the same time, you're saying that with limited resources, your taxes are where they are right now, you don't want them raised, and we're planning to spend money to advertise your event, but you're gonna have to cooperate, and your cooperation is, you're gonna have to write your own press releases. And we're gonna hold a seminar at our expense to teach you how to do that. So send somebody within your group to come to this seminar that you can depend on that will do it.
So do we make a certification that says certain groups are certified to
Write a press release.
not write a press
Yes,
release,
send it
but to be
somewhere.
able to use certain services from the tourism department? You have to be a certified organization for our tourism department to help you with additional services. Something along that lines. Could you do something on that? In that respect.
I kind of go along with that the same way when you talk about businesses giving you data for the thing. If you don't want to give the data, why are we putting it in there? It's not a free service, we all pay taxes for it, but that generates it, but there's a give and go here.
Well, are you going to personally write some invitations, to write a letter and send it out to some of the groups? Can you take that upon yourself in the next week or two to get these letters out to these groups?
I'm working on it this weekend.
And I guess maybe just hint to them that there'll be a,
Joe's buying beer?
that if that's what it takes, I can.
Yeah.
That sounds better, yeah.
Attendance prices.
How about Don Pritchard talking to him about putting it on the news as much as he can?
And just say that there'll be a, now, let's be realistic. What services, Jack at the beginning of the meeting was pretty upset about this. So if we talk about, groups being certified for tourism department services, what actually, currently, right now, can we help groups with the staff that we have now? What can we say your certification, your press release certification allows you to take advantage of these services? What can we actually say?
I think the idea behind this whole thing is to show people how to be able to write press releases and how to set up and work the calendars. As I told you for that bike race, when I'll work on it tonight, I spent the entire evening doing nothing but putting advertisements out or putting that on the calendars. I mean, that was a good 4.5, 5 hours that I spent. So,
And this training
and what
is
we can
trying to
do-
alleviate some of that
Correct,
from
and that's
your
where I was
office.
gonna go. If they would like it to be reviewed, they write it, put it together, and let me look, just bring it in, can you look this over and let me make changes? I can do that.
Okay, what else? That's one, that'd be great. I mean, that's a
I
benefit.
can provide a list of what website calendars to go after.
Okay.
I can provide information to where to send the news release.
Can you, setting up group things, can you mail them out? Can you provide a service like, okay, we're gonna do it to newspapers, or we're gonna do it to, I know you have a winery database, that you can just, you put one email that goes to everybody?
Oh, well, yeah, no,
I mean,
to
that-
the businesses to send out?
No, I'm talking about, they give you a press release, it's in Word format, you just cut and paste it in an email from the visitor center that goes to all these newspapers. Not the ones where you have to fill in stuff and all of that, but it's a 5-minute
A
job.
lot of the newspapers are moving away from the sending it in to you upload it yourself.
Most of the websites, if they have it, you have to, like.
Yeah, you have to physically go through that process.
Right, there's a
of
couple,
having it
St. Louis
submitted.
Post Dispatch over in Flat River, theirs is that way.
Southeast Missouri is doing that. Southern Illinois, I know, is moving to that. A lot of the major,
So, before we get bogged down in the weeds, so we can do a review. We can,
I'll have a list of calendars, I'll have
a list of calendars, a list of websites, a list of newspapers.
Correct.
That will update on a periodic basis so that these groups have the updated information and the updated websites of where they need to post and what they need to do. So, review,
And I would like to show.
email addresses or website addresses.
Yes.
What else?
And
Can we?
at some point, I would like, I don't know if we'll have time for this, but this is something I would be willing to sit down with each group as they come in and they're wanting to fill out. Putting events on business.
Okay, there's another service. So
That
now let's
takes-
say,
Putting your event on visitmo.com, to put an event in properly takes 2 hours.
okay,
minimum.
boom, let's stop there. There's 3 very tangible benefits to these groups to come to the press release training. Agreed? Did everyone agree to that? So let's stop there. If you come up with more, great. Now, do we have the power, do we want to say that if you don't go to the press release training, Stephanie is no longer obligated, her department is no longer obligated to help you with these 3 benefits?
I would, if you're gonna do that a week and a half before the event, that's a little.
Well, of course, I mean, she can only,
I'm just saying we should have started getting this out earlier.
We've got 3 weeks. Well, how long? November 5th? What's the date?
November 5th.
Yes, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So, and maybe we have, is it going to be videotaped? Will they videotape this training?
That will be up to Sandra Cabot.
Okay, sometimes they won't, so.
Because I know these are things they normally charge for, so it's likely that it will not get videotaped.
I think they've got 2 weeks' notice. Out of an organization, hopefully they can find one person to go to a training with a 2 weeks' notice. And we'll grant them, this will be a probationary year, so if you don't make any, but maybe by next year, We'll do the training again once a year. And, so do you guys feel comfortable doing that?
I don't have any objections.
I have no problem with it.
Okay.
If you tell them, we're not going to write press releases for you. If you don't put out press releases, your event is not going to be well attended. Why would you not? This is a freebie. You're not paying for advertisement.
Yeah.
Press release is not paying for advertisement.
Okay, so I guess in your personal invitations, and if we don't send an invite, then I guess we can't hold that against them if we forget a group in the, if they weren't invited to the press training, then, they get a freebie.
I would also be willing to email it out on our email mass list.
Ooh, that'd be great. Yeah. You guys reach a lot of people.
I don't know, I would have to check with Martin, but I send out a quarterly newsletter. And I'll ask him if there's something that I can put together and send out as well.
From the email list that we have now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which will just go out
It's a good
to
idea.
Absolutely, it's a free.
everybody that's signed up for our electronic newsletter.
Yeah.
But I'll have to ask him to make sure that I can do that, because it is set up as a quarterly,
We're gonna go out
so I
to
just need to
that.
make sure that that's okay.
Stephanie, so can you get that letter to those two so they can get that out?
And actually, now I'm going to set up an RSVP. I mean,
We hope we need.
Yeah, let's hope we need it. Let's hope we pack the room.
yes, I will do that.
But writing a press release is the least of the problems to me. It's what we're gonna do with it after we get it written. If
And
you
that-
didn't get that detail put together and out to people, and then even when they get it, they're not gonna have, a lot of them aren't gonna have the capability of doing it. But it needs, that's a good start.
Yeah.
At least provide the information.
And if we have enough groups that say, this doesn't work for us, we want additional services from our tourism department, then I think, it legitimizes us to change the way we do, we operate the tourism department now and forces us to rethink some things. And those will be the people to come to the Board of Aldermen and say, we expect more from our tourism department, make sure this happens. So if it takes more staff, if it takes more money, if it takes more, whatever the case may be.
I don't think you can depend on that. When we were back 2-3 years ago, we had an agreement what we were gonna do, what the tourism director was gonna do. It changed not because of us making a decision. It changed because the director decided not to do it.
That is not true.
Well,
That is not true.
I was part of the interview committee when
I know
you
you
were
were,
hired,
Jack.
and I know what we
you were
talked
there.
about.
But at the same time, there comes a point in time where I have to make priorities. My priorities
I'm
are
just telling you what the
getting
job
out. No.
description was.
Yes, and it has gotten to a point where I have to hire more people. I've gone to the Board of Aldermen.
We've been over that. I don't wanna say more about it.
Okay, that's
just
fine, but
forget it.
I am highly offended. And I know
I
that you
don't,
can care
Stephanie, I
less.
don't think you should be offended. I think it's a matter of point. I mean,
I didn't make any changes. It's a matter of time. Do you want me to make sure that I get
Stephanie,
the advertising out?
Stephanie.
Do you want to make sure? No. Do you wanna
This
make
is,
sure I get everything else done?
it's very factual. When we originally set this up, that was part of something that we were looking for. We've added more responsibilities on you down at the tourism department, and so this one's kind of gotten pushed down to the bottom. So, being a DMO and taking care of the grant, those were things that the original tourism director was not responsible for. So, as a group, we need to decide, where our priorities are and what we can afford to do within those priorities. So, I think there's room for negotiation on here. If we have high enough priorities, we need to find the staffing and we need to find the money to fund all these, and we need to have that this discussion. Because some of these groups are struggling to make these events happen and be put on and try to be well attended and so on and so forth. So,
I think the frustration from the groups was the fact that the change was made and it really wasn't communicated that change was happening, nor did we provide alternate training or whatever how to do it. And that's why we got into this and saying, let's do this training.
With this
Yep.
group, with the prior Tourism Advisory Council meeting, it was. And I understand that you're sick of hearing about how I'm understaffed. I've been understaffed for over a year. I've been saying it for over a year. I've been telling it to my bosses. I've been telling it to the Board of Aldermen. This is not something that has not been known. And we could sit here and argue all day long. I have a family emergency. Is there anything else that you need me for the rest of this list? Because I really need to go.
Just, I guess I would, in a future meeting, I'd like to have a discussion about what hard leads are, what kind of information we get. Do we get those for all of our print ads?
No.
And which ones do we get them for? Do we track them? Is there, it's,
I can answer this quickly. Hard leads come from any advertising that offers a reader service. That is something that's disappearing. So no, not everybody that we do uses the hard leads. Right now, our number one advertising that provides hard leads is AAA, and the group travel that we do provides hard leads. What was the other part of your question?
What was the other one, Stephanie? AAA and what?
AAA and the group.
The
group
do we
advertising.
keep track of them by
Yes.
magazine?
Well, everything with the except for on AAA, our leads come in for Midwest Traveler and Southern Traveler, they're combined. But every other one is separated. And we contact each and every person, generally it's via sending out, if it's an individual, we send them a visitor's guide. If it is a group, we send them specific information that they are looking for. Once we send the packet, I turn around and I make phone calls to follow up with them to see if there's anything else they would like to have. And that has worked out really well, and is one of the other things.
Well, that was just a year ago, I was looking at some of the old minutes, and you had said you got like 2,000 hard leads.
Yes.
And I was just trying to figure out, is that going down, is that going up?
It's
Because
going up. Actually, we have 1,500 more hard leads from AAA this year than we had last year.
It would be interesting, but again, as we move forward, I'm sure then you've got to send something out, it's a letter or a postage, whatever. Is there different ways we can look at this? I was just trying to get a feel for what that whole thing is.
Right.
And how much of them can you email? Because all that takes time with your staff. And
Right.
so that's the only reason I'm asking that question. Plus, I think it's still important to try to figure out ways to show or find out how well our print advertising is working. I think we can, electronic, I think the Google Analytics will tell us we have no real good clue yet. I know it's difficult, but
Yeah, and I mean, and that's something that's across the industry. I mean, we're not going to be able to put a price tag on every single one. We can estimate it, but
this is one way you
this is
estimate.
one way.
Yeah.
This is one way that we can do that.
Because as you said, these print ads are very expensive.
Oh, exactly. But to get into any publication that is third-party certified, has a price to it, and third-party certification is extremely important in any advertising that you go through, because I can come to you and say, hey, I started this new magazine, it's called Really Cool People Travel Here, and I send out to 100,000 readers. I can say whatever I want without having that third-party verification. But coming along with that is you typically spend more on the ad, but you get a better response, and you know you were actually hitting that number of people.
I have a question. Just really quick before you go, on the press release training, are there individuals that during that training will be able to be, like part of this group, that would be able to be certified to perform future training events?
Well,
That
this
if we
isn't
have
gonna
groups
be
that
a-
are not going to be here for that November 5th event, but are interested in the press release training, that we can have
It's not a
somebody
certification
or a couple of,
process.
well, but you know what I'm saying, as far as someone that is
Would have the resources to be able to do
to
that.
be able to do that again and recreate it in a smaller format for a handful of groups that are interested in it, but can't make it to that event,
Should be.
and don't want to wait till next year to do it.
Ask Sandra and see what she says.
Yeah.
Or if we can record it, see if we can maybe get
Yeah.
Channel 798 there to record it. And
for a fee or something.
Right.
Yeah.
To see what she has to say. Okay.
Also, before you leave too, sorry, were you going to, go ahead, Bob. I was just going to ask about the submit event button on the webpage, when we expect that to be up, because Chuck hasn't received anything yet.
Well, you know, and actually, I just now have purchased the Adobe to make that a fillable PDF form.
Okay,
I have a draft, I put it together, I'm going to play with it a little bit more. I'm going to recreate it through Adobe as opposed to taking the Word document.
Okay.
I think it'll look cleaner. Once I have that, there won't be any other changes made to it. It's just going to be putting it into a PDF form.
it can go up.
Okay.
Joe had a quick question, signature events listing guidelines.
Yes, you were wanting to know.
What's our policy to become a signature event? Like right now, we don't put the county fair on there, but we do put 4th of July on there. Lions Club has sponsored a backstopper bike and bides event for about 5 or 6 years now. What's our criteria to become a quote-unquote signature event?
As far as I know, it was 5 years,
I thought it was 5 years.
Okay.
so you should be able to go up as a signature
It might have even been
event.
3 years. It might have even been 3 or 5
I think
years.
it depended upon the type of
Either or.
event.
I think it's a signature event now. If you're after that 5-year mark.
We just probably want to come to some agreement. Write it down someplace so
I
that we
would,
don't.
yeah, I would say
It-
3 years if it was showing
But
growth.
but
Yeah,
I question,
that's
without
what it
having a
was.
lot of debate about this, but the county fair has been going on a lot more than 5 years, and it's not a signature event. So it's got to be more than criteria than just number of years.
Well, I think way back when it was, we wanted to do city
Well-
only, but we should involve the county. I agree with the county fair should be on there.
It was something about if the event is growing and it reaches that 5-year
We did
mark,
talk about
then.
Yeah.
Does that, it rings a bell now when she said that. I
Yeah.
remember that
Could you
conversation.
Is that something that the website committee has to decide, or is that more a general thing?
I see, and I'm thinking that was, I'll go back and look at my notes too on website committee, but I'm pretty sure that if it was sustaining and growing, if it was a sustained event, for more than 3 years, and then growing after the 3rd year into the 5th year, then it would become a signature event.
Okay.
And then
I'll
there
look
was
that
also-
up.
I think there was also something specific that it had to be in the city.
In the city.
But
It was a city
the
event.
county fair,
It's in the city.
Is
It's
it
on
in
city
That was,
property.
wasn't
Well,
that originally?
It's inside city limits.
Under discussion by those of us that met over at the chamber office on the original website.
that was
Mhm.
where the decision was made.
That's where the decision was made.
Right.
And we also said if it was a school activity.
It wouldn't
then
qualify?
Wouldn't qualify. I don't
No.
care if they've been doing it for 20 years. It
Right.
wouldn't qualify because everybody has a school activity.
Yeah.
Well,
If it
needs
was
to
a
be
church
tourism
activity,
related event.
It had
if
to
it
be
was a church
tourism
activity
related.
like their picnics, we wouldn't qualify it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
That's more addressed to locals rather than bringing
Right.
someone in.
Sure.
So we didn't try to weed anybody out, we just said it had to be what we felt was a tourism event.
Right.
Yeah.
So could
I'll
you-
look that up. I think I have that
Yeah,
actually.
and that actually might be something to relook at with, on that event submission form. Did you guys get a chance to talk about that? I know it was on the agenda.
Well, it was just where it's at, because we had
Oh,
guidelines
okay.
always.
Yeah, and actually, I wanted to follow up with the guidelines. I did have some questions on, and it kind of leads into what Joe was just talking about, what Mike was just talking about. With the, get to it. Oh, this might be of interest to you. I was hoping you might find that interesting. I thought I had it. When it comes to the fundraising, it said no fundraising events. Most of what the Lions do
Mhm.
are fundraising events.
Yeah, it would definitely fall under
So we
fundraising.
would want to make sure that we specify that down and qualify a little bit more before we approve that, or before you approve that. We need to really take a look at that because
I guess we approved it about 2 meetings ago, but we need to relook at that.
Okay,
that
yeah,
issue.
I would say it needs to, because, even with what Chip Marzuka does, that would qualify, and we have put that on the calendar, because he does, he brings in February, he brings in, and that's a good draw. But for
Oh, the
some
Down
reason-
syndrome event?
Yes.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the Zell Church got put onto the calendar, not by me, Chuck did. The
For what
Zell
event?
Fall Festival that they hold.
Hmm.
I had sent an email out before I got the request, I sent out an email, and then I saw it was already on the website, so I sent out another email saying,
Yeah, tell them maybe.
please disregard, it was already put up.
Hmm.
I thought they were good.
I had it, I just don't know when.
Maybe that should be Jack's responsibility. Along with everything else he's required to do. request for the menu. Instead of just regular french fries, sweet potato
Oh,
fries.
thank you. There's the feedback.
They were good that one time you did them.
There we go.
Remember?
Yeah, they were good.
Oh, they were delicious.
And then the other thing that I was concerned,
She's going to look to see what those were.
the other thing that had my concern was where it says, staff, welcome center staff making decisions. Since this was approved 3 months ago, and there have been a few things that I was chosen to do that currently with the copy of, I am not comfortable with that wording, because apparently,
Is there anything
I don't
going on
have
this
that.
weekend at all?
So that would be something.
There's no event or anything
I
this
would like to
weekend.
have it spelled out.
Oh, no.
While we're going to, be looking at the fundraisers and that. something that we need to put together and
What is that on?
that would be on anything that involves being approved or denied by working center staff,
For website?
for website,
For-
for
Oh, I'm sorry.
events.
Events, okay.
The only other things I had is next month should be metric or measured data. We said we're going to do it every quarter.
Right.
So next month should be that part of the review. And perhaps we can get them together and send them out before we come to the meeting, so.
No, and I will. I'll have some of that. Now, if we could get in line with, on that, which is the other thing I was going to talk about, so financials from that. If
It's
we
all
could
the
get-
tourism metrics and this financials.
No, I know. There was one thing on that tourism metrics, instead of having January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, it might be better to have that by day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, as to show what days people are coming in heavier around than others.
Oh.
Um,
Yeah.
By day of the week as opposed to by what number, because it doesn't have that information on there.
Are you talking about on that
On
spreadsheet?
that first spreadsheet.
It's just that it changes, yeah. I'll definitely do that.
But what I was going to suggest is, if we could get on a schedule that follows when the state releases their SAC codes,
Sue said she has the
which,
bids.
well, hers isn't broken down by SAC, at least she hasn't told me, I'll follow up with her. But, being able to provide that information. So, I'll do a financial light and then get back onto that.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons that we went to just looking at 8 businesses, 8 shops, restaurants, and
She's going to
B&Bs.
continue with those 8
Yeah.
same places?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rather than try to.
I thought that was just a one-time.
No, that was to look at it, because it gives us a more of a look at the downtown tourist. Because when you look at the SIC code, it's all over there. I mean, other than B&Bs, that's pretty narrow. When we look at the businesses or eating and drinking establishments, I think we got 21 or something like that.
Yeah.
So just trying to look at things that.
But they are ones that, McDonald's, when people travel, people like to go to McDonald's because it's familiar. But no, I understand what you're saying.
And that's why those were so. The other thing is, the next meeting is November 16th.
Mine's on
I'll
the
start.
resolution.
Is there any other new business?
Just one thing, Stephanie, are you going to the Community Heritage Tourism Conference in Fredericktown?
I have the other one.
I just got that email the other day, and I thought maybe it would, for $45, I thought it's probably
Absolutely.
something we should be sending.
Actually, the schedule is they're gonna have one session on Friday
Friday.
evening, and the next is all day Saturday. It's $45.
Yeah.
I think Tish is talking at one of the sessions.
Right.
So I'm planning.
You can have that if you want.
Oh, thank you.
So,
I'm planning, you have to sign up by November the 2nd.
yes.
I am gonna drive over each day. Any other new business?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second? Oh,
Second.
What?
All in favor?
Aye.